Welcome to a special edition of Legal AF. The shutdown, entering its second week, is being used by Donald Trump and MAGA to exploit for political purposes, to be a false flag event in order to continue to shrink the federal government and destroy the relationship between the American people and their federal government and their programs, and the American people and the states and their programs that help everyday Americans. And so it's not just about numbers, it's about human beings. And we've got a number of developments that have happened that, as we've said before on Legal AF, we want to bring the newsmakers in, we want to bring the leaders in. And we have back with us again, so pleased to have back with us Representative Ritchie Torres of the Fighting 15th in New York, the Bronx, who's working overtime, not only for his district, but for all Americans. Representative Torres, thanks for coming back to Legal AF and briefing our audience.
It's an honor to be here.
Yeah, appreciate that for us too. And I thought we'd start with the shutdown and how it's impacting Americans, how it's making them suffer. We have the first shutdown in American history where the president controls, where the party controls all three branches of government. Just to remind everybody,
Yes.
he controls the House, he controls the Senate, and he has the White House. And yet we have a shutdown because of we can't get 60 votes in the Senate. You can't get 60 votes in the Senate because now is the time to sit and bargain and fix the things that you destroyed, Trump, with your budget bill. And of course, that was going to happen in negotiations and with leverage. And then as right before we're coming on the air, we get word that Letitia James has been indicted. Apparently, it's news to Pam Bondi at the Department of Justice. Politico is reporting she didn't even know that Lindsey Halligan was going in on Thursday to get the indictment. And she being a fierce New Yorker, fighting for the rights of people. And of course, you the same. I want to hear from you, Representative Torres, about Letitia James. But let's start with the shutdown. What are you seeing, and what can the American people do about it as we enter the second week of the shutdown?
Well, I want to echo what you said. I mean, Republicans control the White House, the Senate, and the House of Representatives, and therefore are responsible for the shutdown. It is a Republican shutdown. The party that holds the power bears the responsibility. And Donald Trump and the Republicans are not only shutting down the federal government, they're shutting down the healthcare of tens of millions of Americans. I mean, first, the Republicans cut Medicaid by over $800 billion, which will cause 10 million Americans to lose health coverage. And now if Republicans refuse to reopen the government and extend the Affordable Care Act enhanced premium tax credits, then a total of 14 million people will lose health care. Up to 24 million people will see their premiums spiral out of control. And the majority of those people live in red states that Donald Trump won. 75% of the recipients of the ACA tax credits live in red states. So Donald Trump is not only betraying people in places like the Bronx, he's betraying the very people who voted him into office. And according to KFF, 80% of Americans, nearly 80% of Americans, are in favor of extending the Obamacare tax credits. And the 80% supermajority includes more than 90% of Democrats, more than 80% of independents, nearly 60% of Republicans. So not only do we have the moral high ground, but we are on the winning side of an 80-20 issue.
I was at a local store today in Miami, and in the background, all I heard interspersed with Spanish was Obamacare, Obamacare, Obamacare.
Yeah.
I mean, this is hitting Americans and others where they live. And yet you have an administration that is not only spending, and everybody should sit down for this number, hundreds of millions of dollars to send the National Guard in to do local law enforcement and pick up garbage in parks. $200 million so far for DC alone. I haven't even done Illinois or Portland. Hundreds of millions of dollars blown there that could have been used to help Americans. You have that at the same time. How many more millions are being spent in a violation of the Hatch Act, Representative Torres, to put Kristi Noem up on the big screens while you wait in line at airports, telling you that the reason that you're waiting in line is because the Democrats have shut down the government?
Look, for Donald Trump, the purpose of government is self-aggrandizement. Like, he's using government to aggrandize himself at the expense of the American people. And the American people are suffering deeply. You know, the single greatest burden that weighs heavily on American families is the crushing cost of healthcare. The cost of healthcare has become the leading cause of bankruptcies among American families and small businesses. Since 2000, the cost of healthcare has more than doubled, skyrocketing by about 121%. And now those healthcare costs that have doubled since 2000 are in danger of doubling once again and doubling overnight. If Republicans refuse to reopen the government and extend those Obamacare credits, 24 million people will see their premiums rise by an average of 114%. And if you're a 55-year-old couple earning $85,000 a year, you will see your premiums not double, but triple, from around $7,000 to $24,000. A premium shock of $17,000.
Which, when you get past the numbers, right, Representative Torres, it's not going to double or triple because people are going to drop coverage, meaning they're not going to have health care, meaning we're back to emergency room health care, meaning people are going to die under the Trump administration and the way he's managing it that wouldn't have died statistically under a proper, dignified approach to health care, right?
But keep in mind that healthcare providers are often the largest employers in most rural and urban counties. So not only is Donald Trump killing jobs, he's killing lives. Like, Donald Trump's assault on healthcare is dangerous and deadly, and it's going to have a disproportionately destructive impact on red states. There are 18 to 19 million recipients of ACA tax credits that live in red states that Donald Trump won.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. And the mainstream media is sort of like, I don't know, they're just getting their eyes glazed over like donuts, or they just don't see the human dimension that somebody like you that actually represents a group of people. Because I saw them actually making fun of Hakeem Jeffries' live stream. Did you participate in that?
I did not. I was not at the live stream.
Yeah. And so Ben Meiselas, my podcast partner, participated, and they had a quote in Politico, I thought, trying to troll him a little bit, like, where Ben intoned, I think appropriately, Americans are going to die because of Donald Trump's healthcare policy. Do you think that was that's something that's overstated or hyperbole?
It is factually true. Like, the loss of funding for Medicaid and Obamacare will mean that the elderly and the disabled might lose access to home care and nursing homes and assisted living. It could mean that children with disabilities, children with autism, lose access to specialized therapy. It could mean that pregnant women lose access to maternal care and babies lose access to infant care. It could mean healthcare workers lose their jobs, lose their ability to put food on the table and pay their bills and keep their family afloat. So if you're living in the ivory tower of Washington, D.C., then you're disconnected from the everyday experiences of real Americans. But if you're living paycheck to paycheck, you know exactly the impact of the healthcare affordability crisis. Yeah,
I guess one impact of the shutdown is you're in the Bronx today. instead of working for the Bronx in Washington, and you're in your office there.
Look, we're driving home the message that the Bronx is the hardest hit by the Republican government shutdown and by the refusal to extend the ACA tax credits. You know, my district has the highest Medicaid enrollment in the country, 70%.
Some tens of millions of Americans have been helped, up to 100 million, by a version of Obamacare. Another 10 to 20 million children, people, the poverty line, have all been helped. And there's no replacement for it in sight. What is driving I'll just ask you this way. Why does Trump hate Obamacare so much, other than the fact that that his predecessor, who he sees as a rival, got it passed? What is his beef with Obamacare?
Your question assumes that there's logic to Donald Trump's position. Like, I mean, he doesn't care about anyone but himself, and he doesn't pretend to care. Like, the purpose of his presidency is his own personal aggrandizement and personal revenge against his enemies. And he could care less about the crushing cost of living, the impact it has not only on blue states, but on red states. His own constituents are put at risk by the expiration of the ACA tax credits.
Yeah. Yeah. The voting against your interests, your self-interest, has always been, it's a case study in bizarre Stockholm syndrome. Something's going on there where people are like, yeah, but I like his mean tweets. I'm like, yeah, but your family is dying and you don't have the home health nurse that you need. You have body parts being amputated. I think we shouldn't be like joking about Trump was right about everything, baseball caps, right?
And there's one more program worth mentioning. The government shutdown represents an existential threat to the success and survival of the WIC program.
Talk about that. What is WIC?
Yeah, so WIC serves 40% of all infants in the United States. It provides nutritious food to nearly 7 million women, infants, and children, right? Nutrition, breastfeeding support. It's meant to support American families and American infants and children in the most formative and fragile years of their development. And if you're an infant or a child, there's nothing temporary about the impact of a temporary government shutdown. Like, the loss of the WIC program could inflict permanent damage on the health and development of America's infants. For an infant, nutrition is not a luxury, it is a lifeline. An iron deficiency can damage the brain. A vitamin D deficiency can damage your immune system. A protein deficiency can stunt growth. And so the impact of the government shutdown could have lifelong consequences for the most vulnerable children in America.
Yeah, but the problem, as you know well, I'm preaching to the choir here, is you got Russ Vought and Stephen Miller, who don't give a damn about Americans. They're not human. They have no empathy or sympathy for Americans. They've never had to worry about in their own lives these issues, and they see everything as a number on a page or a ledger.
I mean, Stephen Miller, as a victim of stunted growth, should be sympathetic.
I've never met him in person. Is he a small man?
He seems like a small man.
He's a small.
He looks small to me. Maybe.
Well, I've said that Trump is the incredible shrinking presidency or person. He's just
his hands are small.
His hands are small, but the more that he does,
everything about Stephen Miller seems to be small.
That may be. That may be. So why don't we on that and bringing it to the attention of our audience? Yeah. What can we do about it? What our audience is always looking for a call to action. Midterms, of course, and voting registration and voting, of course. What can we do now?
Look, at those of us who are Democrats have a choice. We can either stand by passively and do nothing, or we can fight. And we've chosen to fight for the healthcare of the American people. And we should be exerting pressure on Republicans, particularly the so-called moderate Republicans in swing states, to come to the negotiating table and broker a bipartisan compromise that reopens the government and that extends the ACA tax credits and keeps healthcare affordable. That's our ask.
I was just going to say, is there anything else on the table except for, and explain to our audience exactly the issue that the Democrats would get behind reopening the government? Explain it to them in language that they'll understand.
Look, there are several issues, right? Impoundment, rescissions, but the main issue is healthcare. Like, we want to keep healthcare affordable. We want to prevent people's premiums from spiraling out of control, right? We're not asking for a new program. We're simply asking for the same level of affordability that people are presently enjoying.
And we're not talking, I imagine, about hundreds of billions of dollars, right?
Although we should ask, by in what universe is it's morally acceptable to give tax cuts to billionaires, but not to give tax credits to working families? Why is it acceptable to subsidize luxury air travel for billionaires, but not subsidize the healthcare needs of the disabled and the elderly? We should ask that question as a society.
Absolutely. Why is it appropriate to spend what will be upwards of $1 billion for the National Guard to do cosplay and abuse civil liberties? And if you worried about that, then just give more money to local policing and set up appropriate academies so that civil liberties aren't violated, and get the National Guard out of the thing they don't do well, which is interacting with the public about First Amendment protests.
And Donald Trump, as you know, is derailing or attempting to derail the most important infrastructure project in the country, Gateway, which is the most important infrastructure project in the Northeast Corridor, which is about 25% of the American economy. It's insanity.
He loves New York, though. He's the king of New York.
I think we're front and center in the enemies list of Donald Trump. But, for me, Donald Trump is conducting himself like a mobster. Like he's essentially telling New York, nice gateway project you got there. Nice Second Avenue subway project you got there. It would be a shame if something happened to it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's not a negotiation. That's extortion. Yeah. And Democrats refuse to be extorted.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Your daughter plays at 4 p.m. in that park around the corner, doesn't she? Be shame if something happened to her. Yeah, it's right out of that. Speaking of mob-like tactics, let's transition and talk about the Attorney General of New York, Letitia James. Just to frame it, she has spent a considerable amount of her time doing the right thing as a public servant, which is to go after the Trump organization and Trump for persistent fraud. She prevailed in front of Judge Engoron. She obtained a civil fraud judgment. She has a former federal judge as a monitor who still sits over the Trump organization. And there's some fighting now about the amount of the disgorgement, but the fraud has been established. It'll go up on appeal. Donald Trump, because she's part of a group that has sued him 40 times in the Trump administration. She's one of the leaders of the attorneys general around the country. That case I just described, the fact that she worked closely with Alvin Bragg, the Manhattan DA, in getting not one, but two separate sets of convictions against Donald Trump or his companies. We always knew that he was coming for Letitia James. And now you see like a little mini version of what she did to him, but over $17,000 with a ridiculous indictment that no self-respecting career prosecutor in the Eastern District of Virginia would touch. She had this time she did it herself. We'll have to see who she shows up in court with. Lindsay, Insta prosecutor, runner-up beauty pageant queen. Halligan goes into a grand jury. Lord knows what she told them. Lord knows what she didn't tell them about the house that Letitia James bought, I think, with family in Virginia. And listen to this one, Representative Torres. This isn't even about she listed it as her first home when it was really her second home. No, it was. They always knew it was her second property. It's that they didn't know, the bank that's no longer in the picture didn't know it was a second property she was going to rent out. And I'm like, okay, what is the problem? Oh, she saved $17,000 over a 30-year mortgage. This is fraud, with evidence already out in the public, that the niece had the power of attorney and she signed all the papers. And just 72 hours before the indictment, the lead prosecutor in that office resigned. Oh no, she didn't resign. She's about to get fired though. She recommended that she let it be known that she was not going to recommend an indictment. And within 72 hours, Lindsay Halligan went in there and got it. Talk about Letitia James and what just happened and what should happen next. How she should fight this and why it's important.
Tish James is a fighter, and she's going to fight these dubious charges to the bitter end. And Democrats like me stand fully behind her. But Donald Trump is a world-class hypocrite. He's never going to win the Nobel Peace Prize, but he certainly can go in the Guinness World Record as the biggest hypocrite. And he certainly has dethroned Richard Nixon as the most vindictive president in American history. But he embodies the very lawfare that he claims to oppose. Right? If you're an ethical prosecutor, you're supposed to go wherever the facts or evidence take you. He directed the Justice Department to prosecute Tish James regardless of the evidence and the facts. Like it is an abuse of the justice system, a weaponization of government at its most egregious and outrageous. And it's the latest salvo in Donald Trump's unrelenting war on American democracy. And for Donald Trump, the purpose of government is not public service. The purpose of government is personal aggrandizement and personal revenge.
Absolutely. The indictment, which is up on our Legal AF Substack, has a section about forfeiture, which is almost exactly the disgorgement remedy that she sought against him. This is all except it's a criminal case against somebody. Because, and I have a theory, and you'll tell me if I'm right or wrong.
Yeah.
He knows he's not going to win this case. He knows he's not going to win the Comey case, but he wants it to be in their obituary that they got indicted, because he has it in his obituary that he's twice impeached and 3 times indicted and whatever and convicted. And I think that's all this is ever about. Lindsay Halligan's never going to get that Senate confirmation. I don't think that's her goal here. Her role here is blind ambition of just doing whatever her boss says, regardless of what her law license requires her to do. And she's doing it. That's why nobody in Washington, you see Representative Torres, where's Todd Blanchett? Why aren't they indicting this through Washington? Why isn't Jeanine Pirro doing Comey? That's where the testimony ended up in the Senate. Oh no, Lindsay Halligan.
Look, I have no insight into the warped mind of Donald Trump, but it's all about revenge. Like the one thing that he cares about more than anything else is exacting revenge on his political enemies like Tish James, Adam Schiff, James Comey. It's all about, I mean, that was this Trump 2.0 is the institutionalization of revenge. That's what it is. That's the story of his presidency.
Yeah. You and I have always been in complete agreement on that. The only reason he ran was to run away from the conviction and from jail time. And to a retribution against those that brought him down. And then third was to make, as like any dictator, was to make as much money as humanly possible for himself and his family and those around him. And we're talking billions with a B by the time he's done, just like any dictator. And then when he flies away on that Qatar plane, that was supposed to be for America, worth $500 million plus more after they're done retrofitting it. And he flies off to the Trump library, wherever the heck that's going to be. It's going to just be weighted down with gold bars and gifts and cash. We're watching it right now. Look what's going on in the Middle East. You got Jared Kushner's back doing the deal with Steve Witkoff because they see this as a giant land deal instead of a humanitarian peace problem and crisis. Just to touch on Israel for a minute, Israel, an ally, has violated for a long time the Powell Doctrine, right? If you break it, you bought it. So they broke it after going into Gaza and had no plan to fix it. And now Donald Trump's declaring peace in the Middle East because he got the hostages out, apparently, although it still remains to be seen. But that is the type of, the only reason he's even involved in that area is because the family's involved and Witkoff is involved in the Arab states with money-making deals, or he wouldn't even care.
I'll give Donald Trump this much credit. Like, the paradox of Trump is that he's simultaneously the most honest and dishonest person. Like, he does not conceal his corruption. It is out in the open. It is utterly shameless for everyone to see. Like, he openly directed Pam Bondi on Truth Social to prosecute his political enemies.
Purportedly, that was a mistake. That was supposed to be a direct message.
He never removed it.
I know, it's still there.
And it's consistent with what he said publicly.
That's true.
And in his FCC chair, like, if you were competent at authoritarianism, you would privately pressure companies. The FCC chair goes on a podcast and announces that if ABC refuses to hold Jimmy Kimmel accountable, there's going to be repercussions.
You like that license of yours?
It's all out in the open. So
yeah,
there's something honest about their dishonesty.
Well, that's what the chief White House correspondent for NBC said to the media. She actually likes Trump, even though he hates her. At least they play this cat and mouse game all the time. She said he takes questions. It's he can't stop talking. He's used to, as he was in New York. So live cabinet meetings on the way to the Marine One, any White House event she runs down to, because it instantly becomes 30 or 40 minutes of him just saying shit out loud. And so for her, where she's looking for content, and for us on Midas Touch and Legal AF, where we love the clips, he's great in that way. Although it does mask the inner darkness of that administration, right?
Well, it seems like he's willing to answer any question except relating to Epstein. That's the one topic that causes him discomfort. So
you're using this word, Representative Torres, starts with an E. I really don't. I haven't thought about it in a long time.
I know it's been forbidden, but
okay,
keep in mind that's part of the story of the government shutdown. Like we're one signature away.
Well, let me ask you about that. What is Representative Grijalva doing? Because she's just waiting around for the reopening of the government.
She's waiting to be sworn in, but Mike Johnson refuses, knowing that she's going to sign the Epstein discharge petition that Donald Trump wants to oppose.
I think she should have counsel. I think she needs to run into court and get an order of mandamus to get herself sworn in. Let's try it.
Look, I'm in agreement with you. We should exhaust every means of fighting the Republicans.
Absolutely. File the lawsuit. There's plenty of, them well, and I do too, plenty of public interest groups that are be willing to represent her and file that, because we can't let this be the precedent, right? We're just not going to swear you in for the next year.
If there's one thing America's good at, it's litigation. So that's
are you confident that with her being the 218th vote, that the discharge petition to get it out of committee and to get the Epstein file released to a floor vote will result in the Epstein files being released?
I'm more confident about the House than I am about the Senate. It's not clear. Whether the votes are there in the Senate is a question mark, which makes Mike Johnson's decision even more puzzling. The decision to prevent the refusal to swear in my Democratic colleague.
He must be vote counting, and he must be worried. Although I can't figure him out either.
He's a strange man.
He is a strange man.
Yes.
But who's not a strange man? The person right here with us right now, Representative Ritchie Torres of the Fighting 15th. I'm using a line that Colbert used to use a lot. Remember when Colbert back in the day used to bring on representatives from different? Do you remember that? Oh, in the very beginning of his show.
I'm sure every comms director would say never go on Stephen Colbert's show. But
did you know that the first 4 or 5 years of his show, he used to
I loved it. I was in high school at the time. I loved it.
Oh, it was so great. I used to love it. And everything was the Fighting 15th. Yeah. Right.
I loved his impersonation of George Bush.
Oh my God. One of the greatest lines I don't want to talk about him like he's no longer with us. But the greatest thing, I still laugh at it when I need to be cheered up. I watch it. Is that you're probably in high school, always making me feel young again, Ritchie, is when Colbert was the unknown to most people host of the White House correspondence.
Yes, I remember that well.
With George Bush.
Yes.
And they didn't really know who he was. They didn't really know his shtick, that he was supposed to be sort of a proto-MAGA right-wing Republican, but not really. And he would say stupid things out loud. So he goes up there looking like he's a conservative Republican. And he turns to Bush, and he says, this is the greatest line. He never got invited back after this. He said, I don't know why they're saying that your administration, President Bush, is sinking like the Titanic. It's not sinking. It's soaring like the Hindenburg. And there were like these confused looks and groans. Of course, people that liked Colbert laughed out loud. But we need more of that commentary coming from late night TV or wherever. Donald Trump's done a good job of silencing voices. We'll see what Saturday Night Live does this year, whether they're going to even take on this guy or not, or worried about their broadcast license. That's one of the most chilling, literally, impacts of the Trump administration. I also think it's a major reason, among others, that he did not win the Nobel Peace Prize. Not when the chairman of the Nobel Peace Prize Committee is also during his day job the Secretary General of Penn, Norway, in favor of protecting journalists, the press, and First Amendment rights around the world. Trump's not your guy if that's any measure of whether you're going to get the Peace Prize or not.
Yeah, it turns out wreaking havoc on democracy is disqualifying. For the
Yeah,
level
I
of
mean,
defense. It's,
when
who would have
you're
thought?
actually closer to being an international war
Yeah.
criminal than you are being, the Peace Prize person. But I do love the pick, and I do love her response, which was, "Keep supporting Venezuela, Trump. Better luck next time. I dedicate this trophy to you." It was great. And the more I read about her or watch her interviews, I'm going to put up a poster of her in my daughter's bedroom. I mean, she is just so remarkable as a person, and hopefully will get into power and help the Venezuelan people, right?
Absolutely. Look,
Yeah.
but what good is a constitution and what good is a First Amendment if the courts are unwilling to enforce it? And that's our problem.
Yeah, we'll have you back. We have a lot to talk about. I mean, Illinois, we had a couple of good rulings, 2 different judges there. Ninth
But
Circuit.
the Supreme Court is the issue.
Supreme Court's the issue in the Ninth Circuit.
Yeah.
We had it up on Legal AF Live. The oral argument was not good, and the Ninth is going to rule against Judge Immergut in Portland. And you're right, that it's going to just get served up on a silver platter to the administration, and to the Supreme Court. We'll have to go from there, and we'll have you back, Representative Ritchie Torres. If you want to know more about his good works and what he's doing for the American people and for his district, the links are down below. You can follow him on Instagram and all of his socials, and of course his official account on social media and all of that. Representative Torres, thanks so much. It's always a pleasure when you can brief our audience.
Always a pleasure. Take care.
You as well. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.